Georgia flipped Caden Harris, but is Clark Lee really panicking? What's next? Well, got to press on. That's what's next.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy part of your day, and shout out to the everydayers. Today we're going to discuss, it's going to be a lot of recruiting, and then, of course, Vandy's looking for a new hitting coach for the Vandy boys, so we'll talk a little bit about what their approach was and kind of break down what that means for Tim Corbin. So, biggest story is Caden Harris. We'll talk about the impact of that. Thought we had a blue chip recruit. Georgia comes swooping in. We'll discuss the impacts and and everything involving that here in a little bit. But thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So going back to Caden Harris, right? That's a situation where back in April, he commits from Brownsville. You're like, great, phenomenal in-state talent. Didn't go to UT, all of that, right? You feel great about it. Dynamic cornerback, playmaker, probably in line to be a day one starter, that whole deal, that whole, whatever. So I think Vanderbilt, I know the coaching staff is probably not the first time it's going to happen, probably not the last time it's going to happen. Georgia's a big dog, but I think for the first time that these fans are really kind of paying attention to things like recruits come and go, commitments come and go. And I think some are like, okay, well, he's committed and then he's not committed. And, that's just the way of recruiting. And so when he committed in April, you knew, as talented as he was, you knew there wasn't teams that were going to back off just because he was committed. And, all that's out there. And the way the recruiting world works is they're not in until they sign. And even then, even when they sign, there was dudes hitting the transfer portal, a month into signing, they would like quit the team or whatever. So you never really have a recruit. So, the first thing is this. It's a big deal. And it's a big deal because I don't remember losing in the time that I've really kind of paid attention. I don't remember seeing Vanderbilt lose a big time commit to Georgia or to Alabama or one of the big boys, right? I mean, they haven't gotten many, but Georgia really hasn't plucked that list until now. So it also tells you the direction they're going in recruiting. It also tells you that, hey, we're coming after bigger targets. We're coming after all of that stuff. It's a scenario where you feel good about, okay, we were able to get that. And the thing to be gained from this is this, right? Even though he's not ultimately coming to Vanderbilt, keep the relationship going because he may hit the portal and you may have a chance to get him out of the portal at a future date. Recruiting is never over until the kid leaves college, honestly. Because anytime, at any point they could hit the portal and you could go, oh, hey, Caden, remember us? And that would be some. So he made a decision. I applaud him for his decision. He made a decision. He made a decision what was best for him and his family and his career. And, it's not an easy thing in recruiting when you have dozens of schools, vying for your services. They're telling you everything you want to hear. Everything sounds great. It's tough to turn down sometimes. And, maybe he made the decision too soon for Vanderbilt. I mean, he had to have really loved Vanderbilt to commit. So, and he understood the implications of committing to Vanderbilt and the defensive system he'd be in and all of that. And he apparently, I mean, obviously he knew all that and felt good about it. So if it ever comes up again, maybe he'll feel really good about it the next time around. So, I think the key now in recruiting is, people get up in arms. Oh, screw that kid. This kid's terrible. We hope he fails, all that, like everything, all those reactions you get from fans, it comes around. And I think if you want a chance at him, like back in pre-transfer portal, pre-NIL, if you lost a recruit, that was it. They may transfer. I don't know. But now if you finish top 3, that kid hits the transfer portal, you got a chance. And they've got a year of seasoning under their belt. And even if, let's just say hypothetically, he doesn't see the field at all as a freshman at Georgia, decides he doesn't like the direction that he's going in at Georgia, he wants to hit the portal. Well, he's going to look at it and go, okay, they treated me really well at Vanderbilt, even when I committed to Georgia, even when I flipped. And he's going to remember that and go, hey, I remember Clark Lee's going to do a lot for me. So there's the impact of it. I hate to spend this much time on a kid that's not coming to Vanderbilt, but I think there's more around it. I think we have to kind of focus on now versus back pre-transfer portal, pre-NIL, that, you lose a commit, whatever. So now it's, hey, this kid is going to be good. This kid's going to be special. Let's get him on board and let's do this. So you got that going. But so what's the plan now? Okay. That's the golden question. What is the plan now? What are we thinking? Well, here's what's happening. They are currently working on flipping a target that's committed to Indiana. Jay Timons, 5'11", 185, cornerback from Pine Richland High School in Pennsylvania. He is currently a 4-star on 24/7, and he is committed to Indiana. Now they're working on him. And for him to get a chance to play, I think if Jay looks at this schedule, looks at the availability, looks at the development, he's like, hey, I can go play in the SEC. It is, that's somebody that could possibly be on. So they've already they've had to have known about Caden Harris for a while, but that's why you recruit more than one. That's why you keep guys. That's why you keep relationships with certain guys. Like even when they commit somewhere, be like, hey, something opens up, we'll let you know. And Jay, well, they probably let him know, hey, we got a spot for you. I don't know how good you feel about it. Back in April when you committed to Indiana, how solid are you there? Like, we're on the rise. Indiana, are they on the rise? Was this a blip on the radar? Like, both teams are kind of in similar boats, and honestly, all things tied. I think if you get an offer to go play in the best conference in college football, you take it. And so that's somebody they're going after, and I imagine there's other cornerbacks on the board that they're going to go after as well. So this is going to be an interesting deal on how they go. But there's some other commits out there. There's some other targets out there that I think I feel good about with Vanderbilt and how things are progressing, things like that. These official visits are going well. Guys are responding. Like, usually they say the right things and they just it just goes by the wayside. And some guys, still do that. And other guys are, I think there's some serious consideration right now. But who's going to be that? What targets are we going after? All of that, we'll talk about it next. But first, with the NBA playoffs, the NBA finals coming down to a best of 3, there's nothing like it, man. And the intensity of this series, it's been a great series, man. And the kind of atmosphere that you got to experience it live if you can. And this year's matchups are already delivering. So if you happen to be listening to me in Oklahoma City or Indiana, you should really tune in because Gametime makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Gametime is a total game changer, no matter what you're going to see. If you're here locally, if you want to go to a Sounds game, whatever, Gametime is a total game changer, man. I was just on the app, honestly, looking at Sounds games, and man, is there some good deals. Like the Sounds already are very affordable, but there's some superior deals out there, man. Zone deals are offering 60% off in great sections, man. It's awesome. And I love to see my exact view before I buy, so there's no surprises. The app makes it ridiculously simple. 2 taps and I'm done. And with Gametime Guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal. And if you find a better price in the same row and section, they'll credit me 110% of the difference if I do that. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. If you need a second listen, my man Chris Gordy right here, Locked On SEC. You should check him out. He was on the show last week talking about the house settlement stuff and what it means for Vanderbilt football. And I think it's going to be a really good deal. I think it equalizes some things. And, I think for the top teams, nothing changes for them. But I think for a team like Vanderbilt, it can kind of elevate that program, and a program that's already elevating itself. It's a really good deal, and we'll talk even more about that. I think I've got Kurt Page coming on from the offensive coordinator of the Warklaw Panthers in Warsaw, Poland. Also, quarterback that beat Alabama before Diego Pavia did. So, Locked On SEC is a place to go there. Stephen Willis, Locked On Ole Miss, if you want to check him out as well. That would be that'd be a pretty good listen as well. So, recruiting updates. Now, talked about Caden Harris. Stings, but you got to move on, right? There's other targets out there. There's other guys on the hook. You've recruited fairly well at that position. There's portal guys. Like, there's a whole lot of ways to recover. There's a whole lot more ways to recover from a loss like that than pre-portal, pre-NIL. So, is it as big of a deal? No. Does it suck kind of publicly? Like the kind of the sting of seeing that announcement and going, oh yeah, that kind of sucks. But otherwise, it's pretty good. So it's not a big deal at all. So here's the thing: the recruiting stuff's going pretty well. There's a wide receiver out of Macaulay. Macaulay, if you know, is a great football program. I think they win state or are in contention for state every single year. The state championships is just another home game for them because it's played in Chattanooga. So they're always going to be in that, probably playing against Baylor. Baylor and Macaulay, 2 Chattanooga private schools, boarding schools, are going to be ruling high school football for a while in Division II. So there's some teams trying to catch up, but it's going to take a lot. But the reason I'm talking about Macaulay is this. Keyshawn Tabito. He is a 3-star wide receiver, 5'11", 165, a little bit on the short end, but a player that I'd be excited about because he's coming from a great system at Macaulay. They do a lot of great things as far as throwing the ball around and creating opportunities for explosive plays with their wide receivers. So I'm really excited about all of this and about how he, what he brings to the table. Vanderbilt needs some explosiveness on the offensive side of the ball, and I think he brings that in spades. And so this is going to be, again, a receiving core that desperately needs some good PR right now. And that's not to say the receivers won't, throughout the course of the season, provide some great opportunities for playmaking. But you get a guy like this, he just adds to that group, and you have a couple high school guys that have a lot of potential. So it's going to be interesting. I'm very, very intrigued by the receiving core because this is a group, like I've said all along, they have all of the potential in the world. They have a ton of potential. They have a ton of things going for them. But what they don't have right now is the opportunity to prove it. What they don't have right now is hard numbers, stats to back that up. I think the stats are these guys are inconsistent. These guys just need some opportunity. But like last year's core had all of that. And they, for all intents and purposes, kind of flopped. Quincy Skinner's playing. He's trying out for the Falcons right now. I don't know if he'll make the roster, but he was great at times and oftentimes and sometimes disappeared. Like his talent was there. It was undeniable, but like his production didn't match his talent. Junior Sherrill, very kind of up and down. And some of that was based on the protection that broke down. Some of that was based on Diego Pavia being banged up and not being able to get the ball out there. It's a team effort, but like you had these receivers that you just didn't know anything about, and they just didn't really make as big of an impact as they probably could have and should have. So is this year's group any different? Well, the problem is we don't know. And I know this is kind of turning into my evaluation of the wide receiver core, but I say that to say how important, even at 5'11", 170 pounds, you know, this kid out of Macaulay, Keyshawn Tabito is going to be something that I think adds to that protection. I think it's going to be, I think he's very close to getting his 4th star. So it'd be, in the recruiting landscape, it'd be a really good pickup, publicly, like, oh, hey, they picked up this guy. This guy's really talented. This guy's a 4-star. Like, oh, Vanderbilt's starting to improve their recruiting. Like, perception can turn into reality in that scenario. Like, oh, Vanderbilt, they have 5 commitments already. They add this 6th, then, it becomes a kind of a snowball effect. And from a PR standpoint, they need that. They need some good stories. And he's, he would be, again, somebody that I think if you're going to feature the slot receiver, and we'll kind of see, I think this year's offense will kind of feature guys hitting the seams, hitting post, trying to attack the middle of the field. I think with Eli Stowers and possibly Trey Richardson, you might see Junior Sherrill bump down into the slot in some formations. If they go, if they go 12 personnel, you might see Junior Sherrill play some in the slot. If they go twins with the 12 personnel, depending on the formation, the look, you may see them kind of feature those guys. And with different quarterbacks, the outside guys might be featured a little more beyond the Diego Pavia era. But as of right now, they're putting a premium on guys. Honestly, they need guys that can get open. Let's just be real about that. They need guys that can get open. They need guys that can push the ball down the field. They need guys that can do something and create. And Keyshawn Tabito, he does that. And he does that for an extremely talented group playing a very difficult schedule in high school football. This is not 1A Connecticut football here where you're playing against people that are like where the average size of the cornerback guarding you is 5'6", 130 pounds, and he runs a 5'2". Like, you're not playing against those guys. You're playing against college athletes, and so it's going to be a great pickup when he's right now still just listed as a target, but I think he's very close to committing. So I'll get once he breaks down and commits, I will give you a full breakdown of that. So that'll be down the road. So, Joel Wyatt, I think there's some buzz on him. I think there's been a lot of things said about Joel Wyatt. I think it's coming down to an in-state battle. He's a 6'4", 195-pound athlete, 4-star kid out of the Webb School in Bell Buckle, Tennessee, wherever the heck that is. And it's going to be a scenario where might be an upgrade, right? And, I think he could come in and go, well, hey, Caden Harris is gone. There's opportunity for me. Like, it opens the door. Like, this dude may have gone somewhere else. But he may come on over to Vandy. They may elevate a lot of his athleticism better than the other options, better than UT, better than anybody else that's on there. But I really think it's a battle of Vandy versus UT in this scenario. UGA, maybe, I don't know. But it's going to be kind of it's going to be interesting down the stretch. I think Vandy has more of a chance than it leads on. But he is I don't know. This is going to be a situation where now that Caden Harris is gone, maybe that changes some things, right? Maybe that maybe Vandy becomes more in the picture now because, hey, they're going to use this guy in the way that he wants to be used. And this defense is kind of unique. So I really like this Joel Wyatt kid. I think, Georgia, Tennessee, Vandy, they're all in the mix. But is it going to be what's it going to be? How's it going to go down? Is it going to be another Georgia commit? I mean, that's tough, right? That's tough. But I think I think this also speaks to Vandy's recruiting. Like Vandy's going toe to toe with programs like Georgia and Tennessee, and some of the bigger programs. They're not losing out on kids to like, oh, well, we lost out to this kid because he wanted to go to Central Arkansas, or we lost out to this kid because he wanted to go to Cincinnati. Like there's some bigger matchups. And I think that speaks to, like I said, the reason why it's not a huge deal that Caden Harris committed to Georgia, because it shows you that the recruiting has picked up to a level to where that's not going to cripple you like it would in years past. And this Joel Wyatt thing, if you can land him in place of Caden Harris, I think it re-elevates your recruiting prowess, and it re-elevates your recruiting profile to reflect that this team is for real, and this team should be taken seriously, and everything around that. But those are a couple of updates. I'm sure there's going to be some commits pulling the trigger later on. But anytime you come off of a weekend, it's usually Monday, Tuesday before you hear about some other recruits. So this is going to be exciting, and all that stuff. So this is this is far from over. Got a lot of commits that rattled off real quickly. So it's this could get crazy in due time. So I'm very excited about it. It is good. Things are fine. All of that. Speaking of fine, well, I think Tim Corbin is going to be looking for a hitting approach that's more than just fine. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Vandy boys next. Yo, wrapping up the show here, Locked On Vandy. Some recruiting updates, some speculations, some things along those lines, talking about all that. It's all about recruiting on this episode. It's kind of that dead period of June where that's really kind of all you got, and it's all speculation on everything. Diego Pavia, I think, is going to be I think he has an appearance on Bussin' with the Boys. Those episodes drop every Tuesday, so I'm going to be checking that one out and telling you all about that. Juwan Williams, Kurt Page, going to try to get them this week. Kurt is in Warsaw, Poland right now, coaching professional football in the European League of Football. So we're going to try to get him on board to kind of give you an update on what's going on, what's happening, and all of that stuff. He's now the offensive coordinator of the Warsaw Panthers, so that's going to be it's going to be good to hear from him, hopefully. So, but baseball, real quick on baseball, you lose your hitting coach. I think some things were not good in that scenario. So I think this move seems like kind of like hey, you should go pursue other opportunities. It's and no matter what they say, I think the hitting approach was too up and down for his liking, and it just needed to change, right? So Jayson King is going to leave Vanderbilt. Not sure what he's going to pursue. I guess you'll know in due time if it's publicized. But he spent 1 year as Vanderbilt's hitting coach, and Tim Corbin had this to say, Jayson is someone I have known and respected for many years. He brings 27 years of head coaching experience, but it all goes well beyond that. He simply gets the best out of every situation that he's in, regardless of the resources. He's tough, relentless, and has winning fibers and a teacher's heart. Kids love playing for him and with him. The there isn't a coaching road that Jayson hasn't traveled. His admiration for our program and wanting to coach here was certainly humbling to me. The accomplishments, obviously, SEC tournament in the first round, number 1 overall seed, and a regional bouncing. He worked with the hitters. They had a combined 264 average, which is great in the regular season. But I think when you look at the story of this Vanderbilt team, they were so inconsistent. They were so up and down. They would have games where they crushed the ball. They scored a ton of runs, and they prioritized. They prioritized hitting. There's other games where it's like, okay, should we just forfeit our at bats and just go out in the field and try to pitch and not give up any runs? What are we doing here? Like the hitting at times was pretty bad. And then in the regionals, I think you just kind of went back into a slump, couldn't really get anything going. I think the more the pressure ratcheted up, the worse it got. Like, we're finding out Arkansas is a pretty dang good team. They made the College World Series. And they are, they were a team that shut us down. Oklahoma shut us down in the regular season for 2 games. Like, it was just kind of up and down approach. And some of it was approach. Maybe it got too technical. Maybe him and Tim Corbin were bumping heads. Maybe some of this is on Tim Corbin for not getting the right mix of hitters not hitting the portal hard enough. And, that's another thing that I think should happen. He should hit the portal. He needs to find more hitters. He needs to find guys that are ballers, like Braden Holcomb, Brody Johnston, ballers. They can crush the ball. RJ Austin is a consistent hitter, but like, he never really developed into that fully dangerous, like, you fear the guy coming up. And you had sort of a healthy fear for him, but like, there were times where he'd disappear. RJ Austin, I think, embodied the whole, him and Vastine, or really the whole lineup, honestly. But like, you look at those guys, they were a little bit like this, right, hitting wise. And some of that's the nature of baseball. Baseball is a tough sport. Some of that is approach. Some of that is pressure situation. Some of that is great pitching. And I just think as a combination of that all, I think for you to be considered successful in the hitting categories, I think you've got to be ranked out of the double digits in the hitting categories in the conference. I think you've got to be in the upper half of the hitting categories in the conference to be considered a success. Now, he may know a lot, but is he able to get that out of the players? Is he able to create that? And is he able to, embody the culture of the team and get those results? I don't know. Like, maybe more than one season, maybe some of the veteran guys were used to previous approaches and couldn't quite wipe that out. Who knows? Like, there's a lot of different possibilities. There's a lot of possible answers. There's a lot of things to consider when you're talking about how this whole hitting thing went. But at the very core of it, it just didn't go well enough, because you had a team that's talented enough to make the College World Series. That team, the team that played in Hoover, is a College World Series team. The team that played in the regionals, that was not a College World Series. That was a team that I'm surprised, like, watching them and watching the SEC tournament team, it is 2 different teams. That was 2 different teams. The way they played in the regionals, they got no hit through 7 innings against Wright State. They ended up winning that game, surprisingly, somehow. But they got no hit for 7 innings. What is going on there, right? It was the moment too big for them? Did they expend all their – there's a lot of answers. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things that you could theorize about this team, about why they didn't even make it to the regional final, why Wright State and Louisville kind of walked away with the regional stuff. Like, a team that should have been a surefire Omaha team just completely fell apart. Is it all in the hitting coach? No, it's not. I think some of the, ultimately it falls on the shoulders of Tim Corbin, but like, you point to different things. Okay, well, the hitting kind of faltered. The pitching couldn't really keep up. Like, it all kind of fell apart. And I think, Tim Corbin is wearing some of the mismanagement of the pitching staff in the Louisville game where you burn one of your starters. But, it just, again, at the end of the day, I don't think the hitting was consistent enough. And the next guy that comes in, I think, needs to hit the ground running recruiting. I think needs to get some quality bats from the portal, not just base hitters. Like, you need to get some power guys. You need to get some guys that are going to drive the baseball and really put up some numbers, because you have to have that in the regionals. And they didn't have enough of that to match their stellar pitching staff, and their pitching staff faltered because of it. You've got to have a balance. You've got to have a balance. You've got to have consistency. You've got to know that every time you go out there, your lineup is going to produce. And that not producing is 3, 4, 5 runs. Producing is in the teens. You have to know and have that confidence that you're going to be able to do that. And whoever comes in next, I think, has that on them. So it'd be interesting to see what they do. Need to get more consistent hitting wise. I think is the lesson here, but we'll talk about that as it comes, as portal commits happen in the world of baseball. McIlvain joined Arkansas, by the way, so we'll see how that goes. But we'll see down the road. But until then, we'll see you back here next time. Locked on Vandy, Locked On Podcast. Thank you for listening. At Locked On Vandy on social media. We'll see you back. We'll see you next time. Peace.